Riesling. It's a grape. Some say it's the best white grape variety in the world, while others say it gives them heartburn. I'm in the first camp, as I think that it's certainly one of the best grape varieties in the world, but it also sometimes gives me heartburn. A few weeks ago, I was at the most beautiful Riesling tasting in the world, the Vorpremiere VDP Großes Gewächs, where some of the best producers in Germany show their Grand Cru or Großes Gewächs wines in a 3-day tasting. It was an amazing opportunity to taste up to 462 wines or 154 wines per day. While the majority of the wines are Rieslings, there are also Pinots, Lembergers, Silvaners and Chardonnays that you can taste if you want. I focused on the 284 Rieslings, and at the end of the tasting my teeth were in a sorry state, but I had found my 6 favorite wines from 6 different regions. I have them right here in front of me, so let's taste. The VDP, the Verband Deutscher Prädikatsweingüter, is an organization that combines most of the best producers in Germany, and every year they give a selected group of tasters access to their next release of Grand Cru or Großes Gewächs wines. The tasting usually happens at the end of August, right before the official release of the GGs on the 1st of September. Riesling is of course Germany's flagship variety. It is planted on over 24,000 hectares and represents close to 1/4 of all of Germany's vineyards. Most of the Rieslings at the Vorpremiere were from the 2023 vintage, and I only selected 23s in order to give you a bit of a better insight into the new vintage. Wines of Germany wrote about 23 that it will go down in history as one of the fastest harvests on record. Capricious weather brought extreme drought, which was followed by weeks of heavy rainfall that culminated in an extremely warm late summer. Moreover, most grape varieties ripened almost simultaneously. This doesn't sound great, but you can make beautiful wines in a difficult vintage, and it appears that the VDP producers overall succeeded through the use of smart viticultural practices and careful selection at harvest. The Rieslings were precise, aromatic, and balanced, and the best were absolutely stunning. So let's dive into my selection. I selected 6 wines that I really liked. They were not all the most high scoring wines, but a diverse set of different wine styles from different regions and different types of producers. But before we get into the wines, let me first thank the sponsor of this video, Cellar Class. Yes, Cellar Class, my own company. I believe that wine courses have to be accessible, educational and entertaining, and this is why I started cellarclass.com, my independent e-learning platform. You can do 2 pre-recorded courses on Cellar Class. Cellar Class Start is for the beginner who wants to understand what wine is all about, while Cellar Class Grow is for the person who wants to dive deep into the world of wine. On top of lifelong access to hours of video courses, you also get access to course books plus quizzes that are built into the course to test your knowledge. If you head over to Cellar Class right now and book a course, you also get access to 3 months free Cellar Class Plus, my own little social media platform where you get discounts for different products and services, regular live stream tastings where I talk about different wine styles and different growing regions, and also a vibrant community with lots of additional information that will help you learn more and more. So check out Cellar Class by clicking the link in the description. Thank you to Cellar Class, or rather thank you to you guys for making all of this possible. But now let's dive into those Rieslings. So let's start off with the first wine, which is the 2023 Clemens Busch Marienburg Großes Gewächs Pfalz Terrassen. And for me, the wines from Clemens Busch this year really shone. I thought they produced the best collection of the tasting, and that's particularly impressive considering that 23 wasn't an easy vintage, and Clemens Busch is working biodynamically, so they can't really use all of the chemicals that you can use in order to combat diseases in difficult times. I've been to the winery a few times, and the Marienburg vineyard is an impressive site. In the Mosel, it is very steep, difficult to walk around, and particularly difficult to work in. So they really put a lot of effort into the vineyard in order to extract some really expressive beautifully complex Rieslings. So the vineyard is roughly 18 hectares big. It has a slope of 50 to 80%, and the soils are blue, gray, and red slate. In the Weil parcel, where this wine is from, you mainly get blue slate. So let's open this up to see whether it's still as good as I remembered. The Mosel is still one of the most interesting regions in Germany. It's fairly cool. The vineyards are very steep, so the work in the vineyard is very difficult, really hard. But winemakers still do it because they can make really exciting, racy, lively, refreshing, complex wines there. Riesling is, of course, the most important grape variety in the Mosel region. You can make beautiful wines from dry to super sweet wines from Riesling in that area. One of the most interesting Riesling styles, in my opinion, is the Cabinet that you get in the Mosel, which tends to be quite sweet. I mean, it has like 50 grams of residual sugar, but the acidity is so fresh that it doesn't taste sweet. It tastes juicy. This, however, as it is a Große Gewächs wine, is dry. Großes Gewächs wines always need to be dry. So the wine is pale yellow in color. You have some green reflexes there. It's still a young wine, but it also shows a little bit of maturity. Clemens Busch wines ferment spontaneously without the addition of cultured yeast. The fermentation usually takes a long time, and the wine stays in oak barrels in order to give them a little bit of oxygen. But the barrels are all used because they don't want oak flavor. They just want to expose the wine to a little bit of oxygen to give them more complexity. The Weil Terrassen is a selection from the Weil parcel. The Terrassen is planted with really old vines. Some of them are own-rooted, ungrafted vines, and they produce really expressive, complex wine. So this smells of lemon zest. You get ripe apple fruit. There's also something salty coming through, almost like sea breeze. It's really exciting wine. In the background, there's a delicate reduction, which kind of gives the wine a touch of struck match flavor. And yeah, overall, it's such an elegant and quiet wine, but it's super deep. It really hits you on the palate. I mean, you get all of this intense acidity. It's almost crystalline. Then there's this delicate saltiness, a very long length. This is not heavy at all, but it's just so precise and so balanced and complex. Really top stuff. However, if you like really pristine fruit-driven Rieslings, this is not necessarily for you. This is more of a wild, complex, yeasty kind of style with different flavors, but it's still really exciting. The finish is mouth-watering, salty and complex, and this is just getting started. I mean, those wines are not supposed to be consumed 1 year after the harvest. Instead, this should be something that stays in your cellar for a bit before you open it up. I'm going to rate this 97 points. Absolutely world class. So next up we have the 2023 Schäfer-Fröhlich Halenberg Riesling from the Nahe. This is slightly embarrassing for me, but I didn't really have their wines on the radar. I've tasted some of their wines and I've heard of them, of course, but I've never been there and I haven't really tasted their wines. So this year I really tasted their wines and I was really blown away. The winery is in family hands for more than 200 years. They own 24 hectares of vineyards, top sites in the Nahe region, and all of them are on steep slopes. They focus on Riesling as their main grape variety. 85% of all of the plantings are Riesling. The Große Lage Halenberg is roughly 8 hectares big. It has different steepness levels from 20 to 70%, and the soil is Devon slate. The exposition is south to southwest. What I really liked about Schäfer-Fröhlich's wines were that they have a clear signature style. They are pretty easy to spot or to identify in a tasting, I think, because of their, well, complex aromatics. There's also quite a bit of reduction there, which is well integrated in the overall aromatic profile. So definitely wines that give you something different. By the way, if you're in a wine shop and you see this symbol here, that's the symbol of the VDP. And if it says Große Lage right below that, that means that the wine is from a Große Lage site, from a Grand Cru vineyard. So the wine is quite a bit lighter in color compared to the previous Riesling that we had. I assume that's mainly due to the fact that they are using stainless steel tanks for the fermentation, while Clemens Busch uses oak used barrels. So if you store wine in barrels, they tend to change in color and get a little bit more golden. Yes, it's back. The funk, you know, that's the funk that I remember well from the last tasting. By the way, this is not meant in a disrespectful way. This is a funky wine in the best sense of the word. You know, it smells of lemon and orange peel, but there's also a flavor of salami, a little wild, meaty, yeah, just kind of funky flavor dimension. There's also ripe apple, pear character coming through now that it's opening up. These funky notes, they have something to do with reduction. So if you expose the wine to more oxygen, these flavors tend to go away a little bit and the fruit flavor comes out a bit more. So if you're not a fan of funk, then pour the wine into a carafe, let it breathe a little bit, and then drink it. I mean, you can also carafe white wines, and those slightly reductive wines, they can benefit from a little bit of exposure to oxygen. So now this is getting really interesting. The balance between the funkiness and the fruit is near perfect. You have some apple character coming through, a little bit of pineapple, but not ripe pineapple. It's kind of barely ripe pineapple flavor. And again, there's a certain saltiness, sea breeze character coming through. On the palate, it kind of floats like a butterfly, stings like a bee, you know, it's everywhere. The acidity is sharp, but yeah, it's just a beautiful, beautiful texture. There's also really good grip here. It kind of, yeah, it just offers lots of different dimensions. The finish is very, very long, very refreshing, beautiful expression, quite pristine in a way now that that wild flavor has disappeared. And I'm going to rate this 98 points. Great wine. So next up, we have the 2023 Kiedrich Gräfenberg from Robert Weil. To be honest, I was looking for a different wine to include it in this tasting from the Rheingau region, but I just couldn't. I mean, this was clearly the best Riesling from 2023 that I could find in the tasting, and that's why it is back. Dr. Robert Weil bought his first vineyards in the 19th century, and since then the winery has developed into one of the biggest but also most high-end Riesling producers in the world. The Gräfenberg is their monopole site. It is roughly 10 hectares big and has a slope of 30 to 60%. The Rheingau Riesling is one of the most famous Riesling regions in Germany. It has a lot of history. There's the story of the Spätlese rider here, and there are lots of wineries that really focus on Riesling. But I actually think that it's definitely not the most exciting region right now. I think quite a lot of the wineries are a little bit old-fashioned, are not taking enough risks. So some of the wines are just kind of boring, not quite as exciting as they could be at least. So I think the Rheingau should definitely experiment a little bit more and focus more on producing exciting wines. So here we go. The wine has a golden color, still pretty young, so it's not dark, but there's a golden touch there. The flavor, I get lots of classic Riesling aromatics here. So you definitely have quite a lot of lemon flavor. There's ripe apple. There's white peach coming through as well. So it's quite neat, really tidy, really clean, really orderly in a way. On the palate, this is intense, a little broader than the previous Rieslings, a little bit more caramel aroma, a little touch of honey. I mean, there's no sweetness there, but it has this slight more intense ripeness, I would say, and a long finish. So the acidity here is also intense, but there seems to be a little bit more flesh there, a little bit more richness on the palate. This is not an alcoholic wine. I mean, it has 12.5% of alcohol, so it's actually moderate, but yeah, it still has concentration on the palate. Yeah, I think this is a classic, and I think for the classic Riesling palate, this is also the most familiar style. I think this is the essence of Riesling, really. I'm going to rate this 97 points. So now we are crossing the Rhine into Rheinhessen, and this is the 2023 Knewitz Steinacker Riesling. Rheinhessen has a different story compared to the Rheingau. It's Germany's biggest growing region, but for a long time the focus was really more on quantity rather than quality. But over the last few decades, things have changed significantly, and today it's one of the most exciting growing regions in Germany. At Knewitz Winery, they only started bottling their own wines roughly 50 years ago, but today Björn and Tobias Knewitz produce really exciting wines. In the context of the VDP, they are less famous and less well established, but I think they are really producing great wines nowadays, and they have a clear signature, and I like that. Like, my signature is to throw corks at the camera, you know? I like that too. The Knewitz family farms 25 hectares of vineyards, but only 55% of them are planted to Riesling. The rest is in Chardonnay, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Noir, and Silvaner. The Steinacker vineyard is a 12.5 hectare big site, and it's actually exposed to the northwest. So it's one of the coolest vineyards that Knewitz owns. And cool nowadays is often a good thing because, yeah, you're able to produce lighter, fresher wines even in hot vintages. For me, the Knewitz signature is that high quality reduction. It's not that struck match flavor. It's not that funkiness. It's more like if you hit two silex stones, two flint stones against each other, get this more refined kind of smokiness. Next, you get really precise citrus fruit flavor. For me, this has an aroma of tangerines. There's also a ripe apple character coming through. Really beautiful, pristine fruit flavor. On the palate, this is linear, fresh, grippy. The acidity almost has this kind of delicate greenness to it. Not too much. I mean, there's also quite a bit of ripeness there, but it's just so fresh, light. It just dances across your palate. The finish is long and grippy. Definitely a beautiful wine. I'm going to rate this 95 points. I think it's absolutely delicious, and you should check out the wines that the Knewitz winery is producing. So let's move on to the 2023 Philipp Kuhn Saumagen Riesling from the Pfalz. Similar to Tobias Knewitz, Philipp Kuhn also joined the winery really early on, and I was really impressed by his wines in this year's VDP for Premiere tasting. This wine is from the famous Saumagen vineyard in Karlstadt, a vineyard that I've visited many times. I actually made a video there, so you should check that out. I'll link it up somewhere up there. Saumagen means pig stomach, and apparently this is based on the fact that it looks a little bit like a pig stomach for whatever reason. But yeah, this vineyard can produce really expressive, really exciting wines, and I definitely loved this version of it. However, it's a big site. It's 33 hectares in size, so there are great Saumagen wines and there are not as great Saumagen sites, as the exposition can be very different as well. But yeah, the best wines can be just beautiful. The Saumagen vineyard lies at the bottom of the Hart mountain ranges at 160 to 200 meters above sea level. It is not a steep slope. The slope is maybe at 5 to 20%. And yeah, this can be quite a rich and concentrated wine. But yeah, let's taste this. Let's taste this first. So this is bright golden in color. And this has this kind of dense, ripe fruit flavor that you often get in the Saumagen. There's a certain darkness to it. For me, I don't know, I see black when I smell this. This is not really a scientific kind of thing. It's just my personal impression of the wine, but oftentimes I associate colors with flavors. That's just me. There's a little bit of bruised apple there, and there's riper pineapple flavor coming through as well. There's a little bit of spice, a little bit of smokiness, not coming from the oak. It's just kind of smells a little bit like fire, just a touch. On the palate, this is really rich, grippy, delicious. I mean, there's a lot of power there, but there's also good freshness. Overall, the acidity is lower though, compared to some of the previous Rieslings I had. The Pfalz is further to the south, so temperatures tend to be a little warmer. This is also a warm side. So even though this is not an alcoholic wine, I mean, it's 12.5% of alcohol, again, same alcohol level, but the acidity is just not as pronounced as if you go further up north in Germany. But still, beautiful grip and intensity. Nice. I'm going to rate this 96 points. It's a little rounder and a little less sharp on the palate. So if you are one of those people who can't deal with the acidity in Riesling, then this might be for you. Last but not least, we have the 2023 Zehnthof Luckert Maustal Riesling from Franken. For me, Zehnthof Luckert is one of the brightest stars in Franken right now. Their Silvaners are absolutely stunning, and that's really what they focus on. But I also really liked the Riesling from the Maustal vineyard. So out of all of the wineries in the tasting, Zehnthof Luckert focuses the least on Riesling. 50% of all of their vineyards are planted to Silvaner. Only 15% are planted to Riesling. And I'm not going to need this. The Maustal vineyard is a 5-hectare small site with a west-northwest exposition, and it's pretty steep. Many tasters at the Fort Premiere were impressed by the Maustal vineyard, and I'm a big fan of their Silvaners from that side, but I also really liked this Riesling. So yeah, it's pale yellow in color, not very dark at all. The aroma is really tuned down, so you get quite a lot of Granny Smith kind of flavor. There's also a little bit of grassiness, green asparagus notes, so it's definitely not a loud wine. On top of that, you almost get this kind of green pepper flavor. There's also lemon aromas coming through. It's quite delicate and really, really nice. Really like kind of, yeah, delicate and nice. On the palate, this is super straight, fresh, vibrant, a little bit salty, quite nice. With a little bit of exposure to oxygen, it opens up a little more, but it doesn't become big. It just really laser focused, and I like that. There's also delicate nuttiness, a little bit of rippy, slightly phenolic flavors. Yeah, this is complete, but really tuned down and quite direct. I'm going to rate this 95 points. I think this is a really unique, quite interesting, exciting expression of the grape variety Riesling. And if you are not familiar with the winery yet, then do check them out. This is Riesling Heaven, a lineup of 6 great Rieslings from a great vintage and from great producers, and I did like them all. This might have something to do with the fact that I pre-selected them, but all of those Rieslings have something to offer at different price points for different tastes. They can all be beautiful, and I just drink them all. Of course, the most highly rated one was the Schäfer-Fröhlich, but well, those are just scores. All of those wines are beautiful, beautiful wines. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like it down here, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. My question of the day is, what is your favorite VDP Riesling? Let me know down below. I hope I see you guys again very soon. Until then, stay Riesling. No, stay thirsty.